Hello, my friends, whether PSAM members, Ilahins, or just somebody who is listening to this station. I will talk about the advanced goals. The classical goals are ones who have existed within humanity for a long, long time. The kind of problems I'm talking about now in this episode deals with the issues which really have been urgent issues in the last 50 years or so. And it's about, or since the Second World War, the end of the Second World War. It's about three things: environment and protection of the environment, peace and reduction of war, and the prevention of the spreading of the nuclear weapons, and the drive to expand outside into space and creating another home, a second home for us on another planet or moon, to secure our destiny as a very unique phenomenon in this universe. These three goals, there are a couple of things which really kind of make them unique. First of all of them are contemporary problems. They came only in the last couple of decades, and humanity never knew them before. This is one thing. The second thing, they are so colossal, so huge, that in reality we really cannot do a lot ourselves in these areas, because they demand the level of investments in these kind of issues is really very, very huge. But what we can do is alleviate the awareness or teach our members and the public in general about the importance of dealing with these issues, in the hope that in the future this increased awareness among our members and in general will facilitate projects around these three advanced concepts, either in partnership with other organizations or in supporting other organizations or in coordination with other organizations. And let me go through each of them. The environmental issue. Before the Industrial Revolution, which came about at the end of the 18th century, before that, the impact of the human actions on the environment was really very limited. And Industrial Revolution, the agricultural revolution, humanity passed through phases in its development when it comes to its means of production or the kind of economy that humanity lived within. Up till 8,000 before Christ, humans lived in small groups, and their main economic activity was really hunting and gathering. They were hunting animals to get their meat, and they were picking up and gathering edible products from their environment, and their impact was very, very, very limited. For a long time, humanity was not large in number. It was basically smaller groups concentrated around a couple of families, working together and trying to clear themselves in a very harsh environment. The possibility or probability for humans to live longer was very limited. because the danger was very huge. A lot of individuals were killed during animal hunting, for example. The protection they had was so limited. And then 10,000 years ago, agriculture was invented and people start settling. That led to an increase in number of people because agriculture itself could sustain more number of people. Food security was far higher, far better. People knew when they can collect their food. And the phenomenon of cities started to appear. And the first time they appeared in what was called in modern Iraq or Mesopotamia. So and that left some environmental impact compared to the era of gathering hunting. But then in the 18th and 19th century, and the end of the 17th century, you had the start of the Industrial Revolution, which really caused a huge change in the way human beings have impacted environment. And for a longer time, until the 60s and 70s, the Industrial Revolution focus was in increasing productivity and increasing industrial output. Environment and what that activity did for the ecosystems, for our lakes, for our seas, for our rivers, for the health aspects of humanity, the health of the workers, all of that was neglected for the sake of maximum production. And the factories and the industries were polluting the air without any restrictions. They were polluting the waters without any restrictions. They were polluting the land without any restrictions. And that negative impact on the environment even multiplied because people start moving from the rural areas into the cities. So you suddenly have a higher level of concentrations among in the different countries, and that produced also with it risks of infections and of diseases. So that transition from the agricultural society to the industrial society, when it was completed, it really left a lot of bad impact on the environment. But then in the 70s, 60s, 70s, there became an awareness of people start thinking about what they are doing, and they were drive into taking responsibility regarding the environment, and different agencies, for example, Environmental Protection Agency, which is the organization, EPA, which is the organization responsible for environment monitoring in the United States, was established, and even the environmental sciences themselves start to be established as career. I did myself work as environment engineer for 2 years at Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research between 1981 from 1982 to 1984. And at that time, the environmental issues were really new. But with time, things started to be better. People started to take environment as an important issue. Some parties established itself around the worrying about what happened with the environment, and we have the green movement. Uh, New technologies was forced on the producers, on the industrial companies, so that they reduce the amount of emissions and the pollutants that they bring to air and water. Uh, and at the beginning, we did not know a lot about the impact of the gases which are emitted from the factories, especially the CO2, and also the CO2 which is emitted from cars. That introduced us the problem of what we call global heating, where these gases are capturing the heat, um, causing the earth temperature is to rise, and this is one of the things which is really concerning scientists very much now. And as I said, there are institutions and there are a lot of government environmental agencies and government institutions which were working with this area, with a lot of resources. What we can do as a movement is really to increase the level of awareness among people with the true danger of underestimating the negative impact of the human activity on the environment, especially in this era, in this time of history where we have right politicians who are really showing not only negligence but really a lot of despising for the scientific proof of the negative impact of humans on the environment. Populist kind of politicians who really ridiculize the hard work that scientists have been doing for all these centuries. Uh, and these kind of politicians are getting more power now in the world, and that is making the issue of environment more urgent. And we as an organization, we as a movement, and as a network, as a humanistic organization, we definitely stand by the scientists and the environmentists and the people who really try to uh, stand for the facts which really clearly indicate true environmental disaster if we let these populist politicians do what they want. Uh, and one of the way we can help in this effort, beside our green parties and the scientists who are taking the charge for helping in promoting a good environmental awareness, is to increase the environmental awareness of our members, is to call for them to be be respectful for the human for the environment, and knowing that uh, planet Earth is our only home, and if we pollute it, there is no other home to go to. So we really need to take the environment issue very seriously. We start out at the personal level by being consumption awareness, and by try to live a kind of life which is modest in its nature. I really try to live a modest life. I mean, I try to consume less, and I try to all the time think of what kind of impact my activities are doing for the environment, by raising the awareness uh, regarding, for example, recycling, and issues that one can do at the personal level, and can help the environment. Consuming products that are less cause less damage to the environment. All of that can be done at the personal level. And then if there is local groups within our network who really want to do something for the environment and can work together to do certain things, and it doesn't have to be huge things. It can be something that simple as that number of members of our network who live in certain locality or certain village take a decision, at one time to go out and clean take out the rubbish in the area, for example. For example, reduce our consumption of the plastics and try to do that. These issues that can be do that we can do at the local level, and there are other things that we can do. We can cooperate with other organizations which are more professional uh, in doing environmental awareness issues. If there is a local environment, local club or local network which can of our ilahins who and PSAM members who can, for example, arrange for having a general gathering where they can invite some of the good authorities in environmental issues in his somebody, for example, who is known for the local group. If there's a university where in the city you live in, or the um, local or the place you live in, and you could arrange, for example, for one of the experts in the environment to come and deliver a lecture for the members. These kind of things that can be done. Anyway, that is reasonable. So I mean, we really have to think where you live and what kind of country you live in, and what's the level of freedom for you to do these things. And I leave that for the local leaders and the local groups. They are more able to judge whether these activities can be done or not. But at least you start with yourself and your own family. If you can teach yourself, your children, the importance of observing their own environment in the house or around the house. I mean, if you can teach your kids, for example, not tend to throw things in the streets, for example, that is something you can do. You can train your kids to be aware of how distorting environment can really be catastrophic for the human race in general. But we also all the time think of other things that we can do, and all that is related to possibilities in what we get, resources. The second thing is about promoting peace and work hard to reduce wars and work against the spreading of the nuclear weapons. This is very huge thing. I know that, and I mean, it is really very hard to convince politicians who have entrenching in their national security issues is to kind of think of peace as a first priority. But I think in general there is today a more awareness in the world to really avoid wars and conflicts as much as possible, because today the costs of going into global conflict or a conflict with the country is far more worse due to the nature of the modern war, and specifically due to the existence of the nuclear weapons. If you look at the history of wars, the for a long time wars really touched basically the military. It never really got into the civil population. The first global war, which were really the civilians were totally involved, is the First World War. In that war, it was the first wave the industrial kind of war, where we had tanks, we had planes, and we have artillery, long range artillery. All the areas around the battlefield in France and Europe was devastated. Uh, and for the first time you had higher number of civilians die more than the soldiers. The thing accelerated more in the Second World War, and the dropping of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs showed clearly that the level of destruction that the weaponry has reached is becoming really a threat to the human existence. We promote peace. We stand against war. We believe that conflicts have to be solved with peaceful means, and we stand against the spreading of the nuclear weapons, and we support any effort by politicians or organizations in that regard. And I'm very happy because I'm sitting down talking with you from Gothenburg, the place where I reside. I am Swedish, and one of the good things, I mean, Sweden has done great things in regarding to that, and have been a force of peace for a long time. Our country, Sweden, has never witnessed a war for about 200 years now. But our politicians do also work with have been working all the time, and for with a lot of true sincerity to try to help in stopping the spreading of the nuclear weapons. And I think that effort is very needed. What we can do for this effort is just to kind of raise the level of awareness of our members of the horrendous price coupled to wars and conflicts. And support the politicians and the people in the world who really are in the position to do something regarding these issues. The last thing is the expansion into space, and this issue has become more urgent. Before 10 years, 15 years ago, people were talking about colonizing other bodies. What helped in making this an issue of concern? Two things. First, the increasing awareness among scientists is that there is a probability that the Earth can really the life on Earth can end up very quickly if certain things happen. I mean, if a large body hit the Earth, that would be the end of life. If there was a huge explosion called supernova, which is close enough, it can wipe out the whole of humanity. If the sun, after some time, started to expand, it will finish the life on Earth. The advances in sciences showed us that our life on this Earth is very vulnerable, and the people who studied the history of Earth found clear evidence that we were close enough all the time to be extinct from Earth. That one aspect, which has really worried the scientists a lot, that is coincided with the development in techniques to discover other planets. Before, until the scientists started to develop methods to detect planets around the sun, around the stars, in order to answer a basic question: was there a possibility that there are other stars have planets? The early scientists who faced that question developed methods to try to detect the existence of planets around stars, and they discovered, and with a great astonishment, that every star has a planetary system. Some of them have more planets than others, but every star has a planetary system. That is one thing which was very basic. The other thing which is discovered also regarding planets is that some of these planets do reside in what we call the golden region. What is meant by the golden region is the region where water can exist as liquid, because And if the planet is closer to the sun, the temperatures at the surface of the planet will be so high that water cannot exist as liquid. If the planet is far away from its star, the temperatures on this planet will drop so deeply that you will have only frozen ice. And for life to be existing, you have to have liquid water. And in around any star, there is certain distance, the range of distance between the star and the planet, which grants for the planet to have water liquid within the range of zero, from 0 to 100 degrees centigrade, because below 0 then this is only ice, and above 100 degrees centigrade then this is only vapor, water vapor, I mean. And around each star there is this area, there is this range, place in space around the star where the temperatures are feasible for the water to be liquid. And the scientists start searching on that, and they found that there are planets who really can exist in that place. Now, the two promoted scientists in the modern era to think about what we can do in order to increase the level of survivability of the human life form. Today, humanity lives on one planet, which is Earth. What happens if something terrible happened to the Earth? Then this phenomenon of life, as we know it, will disappear, because there is no evidence up till now. There is no evidence of the existence of life in any place, in any other place, neither outside our solar system or within our planet, within our solar system. There are certain indications, there are things which are happening around, but there is no proof up till now of the existence of life other outside Earth, even simple form of life, even bacteria. A couple of years ago, there was a really serious effort by some people to think of alternatives to Earth, and people already in the 50s and 60s and 70s wrote novels and books about the human life outside Earth. Some of them suggested building cities in space around Earth. Others thought of the moon as a future home for humanity. People are working seriously, for example, with Mars, the planet Mars, as an alternative. We, as a movement of change and movement of progression, and a movement which really look beyond the short cut thinking, we really encourage all these efforts, because we really believe that, and this is the way I believe, and the people in the movement believe, that we really need to increase the level of survivability of the human race by expanding outside Earth into another environments, starting from the local environment around Earth, the moon, and there is talk now by agencies to start establishing permanent presence of humanity on the moon, to the Mars as a planet, and there are technologies that can be used which are very long-term technologies, but they are able to alter the environment in Mars so it can suit humanity. Scientifically, this is not difficult. The methods are there and the technologies are there. It's just the scale of it. I mean, to change the environment in a whole planet is completely different to do it on a laboratory scale. But the technologies are there, and the technology is simply warming up Mars, and we by techniques that we are already used on Earth, but on Earth they are used in a bad way. In Earth, our factories are producing gases that is warming the Earth, and we want to do that. We don't want to do that. But if we took that technology, which really has polluted our Earth and has polluted our atmosphere, and bring it to Mars and use that to pollute the atmosphere to a certain level, so that the temperatures on Mars become helping in creating a liquid water state, then we can start working with this gradual change of the Martian environment. And that, I mean, scientists talk about 50, 100 years of such activities, but it's not something impossible. It can be done. And as a social movement of change, we believe that as humans, we really need to find multiple homes, so that the risk of the end of humanity as a phenomenon in this universe is reduced. The more alternative homes we create, the more the survivability of the human race is granted. And we surely support that with all our hearts and our minds. And we want to elevate the level of awareness of our members into that issue. I know that the last three issues, which has to do with the environment, to do with peace and war, and to do with nuclear weapons, and to do with expanding the human existence in space. These are very advanced goals, and we don't expect everybody to be involved in them. They require a certain level of maybe education and vision of the world. So I don't expect a lot of people in the PSAM network to be really much concerned with that. But if somebody wants more details about these advanced goals, or if this is his area of specialty, and he want to communicate with me, I can exchange certain ideas with him. I am well read about these things, and I follow them very deeply since I was in my youth, actually. I read a lot of book about astronomy even when I was 10, 11, 12 years. So I followed up all my life the American space program. I'm very interested in these issues. But I'm not expecting everybody to be interested in them. The first group, the classical ones, helping the handicapped, helping women, fighting illiteracy, fighting poverty, fighting malnourishment for kids, and integration. These classical issues. They have to occupy everybody because they are basic, and they have been around a lot, and they are not at all connected to being advanced in your education. So we need to work with them. The other three, the advanced ones, are more for people who want to choose another level of commitment to more futuristic kind of questions of certain complexity. With that, I think I finish this lecture today. And again, this is Adli Abouzeedan, leaving you with a lot of wishes for you of peace and happiness in life. And may every one of you feel the strength of goodness and light inside himself. And bye-bye.